So my entire goal, my primary goal going into Ulterior Motives was to be able to bring out good acting performances and strong, believable acting.
Welcome to Metaverse Degen. I'm Lion.
Hi, folks, and I'm Old Man Raptor, and our guest is.
Hi guys, I'm Ariel Emerald. I'm a filmmaker. I make movies in VRChat. I've been studying the art of filmmaking for over 10 years now at this point, and I'm really grateful to VRChat for giving me the space and the opportunity to be able to actually live out my dream of being a filmmaker and follow my passion and pursue filmmaking and achieve a certain level of creative success at this point for it, which just still blows my mind. So yeah, I'm really grateful to be here. You guys seem really cool, and I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Cool. We're just as excited to chat with you.
Ah.
Based on what you said,
Mm-hmm.
you sound like you're up to a lot. Let's start at the beginning. How'd you get into filmmaking and VRChat?
Which one, filmmaking or VRChat? It's
Which?
two very different stories.
Start with filmmaking, and then we'll get into VR.
I've been really just my whole life. I've been obsessed with movies. I can remember very distinctly when I first saw the Chronicles of Narnia: Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe in theaters, and that movie just took me to another universe, and I was so blown away. I demanded to be taken back to see it a second time. So I saw it the first time with my dad, second time with my mom. But since then, I mean, my whole life I've just been in love with movies, but I've always been in love with the process of what goes on behind the scenes and how they're created and how these fantastic worlds are actually brought to life. And, my heroes were never really the people in front of the camera. It was always the people behind the camera working this magic, making this unreal stuff become real. And it always blows my mind, even still, just how much, work and technical stuff goes into doing that. So I've always been obsessed with that. I've always wanted to make big, bold visions like that, and it was there was always a sort of phase of me coming up with ideas for movies in my head, envisioning stories, envisioning shots, envisioning like how these movies would play out. But it wasn't until I saw Inception when I'm like, that is going to be me. I am going to do this. Someday my name will be in the credits of a movie as good as that, because it's just I have to do that by any means necessary. And so that's when I started looking into independent filmmaking and actually learn about the process of how movies are made and actually study like how to actually do this. I mean, when it comes down to it, long and short of it, you're just pointing a camera at things, and I didn't really realize that. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I just thought like, oh, there's so much crazy stuff that goes on a movie set, but it's really comes down to just there's a camera and you point it at people, and everything that happens just has to depend on how good you are at telling a story. And that revelation really opened the doors for me, and I've learned as much as I can about filmmaking. I've watched so many movies. I mean, that's my film education right there, is just watching movies. I've watched so many movies. I didn't go to film school. I just watched all these movies over and over again and began to really pick up how a director uses their voice and how um you can convey not just ideas but intentions and beliefs and emotions through film, and how film can say things that are deeper and beneath the surface, which is something you don't really get when you're watching movies as a kid. But as you start to watch movies as an adult, you can start to pick up on that, and that's the things that's the process of me maturing in my film studies, was really looking into that deeper, like what are these movies actually trying to say. And but the difficulty was that I've always been very socially isolated. I've always had a lot of difficulty being interactive with and connecting with other people around me. And even when I was in school, when I was surrounded by people all the time, it was really difficult for me to like make informed, lasting connections with people that I could then make movies with, or even just, you know, to have as social connections. But after school, it was even worse because I was not constantly surrounded by people my age all the time. So I ended up kind of disappearing into this hole of having these big dreams, but absolutely no way to act on them because I just didn't, I knew nobody and I didn't know how. I had a camera, I saved up, I bought a really nice camera, but I didn't have anybody to make movies with. I didn't know what to do with all of this passion and all of this um urgency that I felt to actually, you know, act on my art and, you know, pursue my dreams. And it wasn't until I discovered VRChat, and right away when I first set foot into VRChat, I was thinking of how can I make films here, or how can I make a film about this, or something like that. And that was always on my mind, and especially when I was starting to see the works of some other creators that were making videos and films and starting to see like the potential of what's possible. But I needed like a year to like heal trauma and become less socially anxious and make connections and make friends and stuff before I was able to do like anything. But once I hit that point, then I was kind of just sitting with my friend Chloe, and we were just talking about movies. I'm like, I have these ideas for movies, but I don't know if I can make them. They're too big, they're too huge. And we were just like, let's just like find a world and we'll come up with some story and we'll just do this thing if for fun, and it'll be like 2 days tops and it'll be easy. And you know, and I was like, well, I've always thought about doing a race movie.
Hmm.
So I we looked for racing worlds, and we found this world where you can drive these cars around this like sort of coastal seaside road. But it wasn't just cars, there was these 2 scooters there, and Chloe really liked the scooters. She was really into that idea. She's very interested in, like, ska culture, and there's, like, this subset of ska culture where there was, like, scooter gangs, I guess, and so she was very into that idea. So we just came up, like at that point, my other friend, our mutual friend, Julo, joined us and was just hanging out, and we were just telling him we were gonna make this movie, and he was very interested. So we just like, um, I just came up with a story idea and I wrote it in like 2 hours the next day, and then we came back and we shot it, and then we needed like 1 day break after that, and then we came back, shot the rest. Took us like a month to edit because we were both being lazy and like unproductive, but eventually we got it done, put it out there, and bam, it just blows up. Like people saw this that I never thought would have saw it. Like the staff team at Metacosm saw it, and then you know Joe Hunting, who did We Met in VR, he saw it, and then it ended up on FIA's TVRS Film Festival, and it just got so much attention to me right away, and that was the moment where I'm just like, wow, I can actually do this. I can actually follow my dreams here. I can actually be a filmmaker, which huge, mind-blowing realization. That was such a transformative moment in my life. Sorry if I just went on and on about all that, but like it's been a huge journey of just from points of absolute desperation, thinking like, how am I ever gonna follow this dream, to being here in VR chat and being like, it's right here in front of me. I have everything I need. I am already able to do it. Like it's a I'm sure in your conversations with other VRChat creators, you've heard similar stories of people just being overwhelmed with the creative opportunities they have here in VRChat.
Yeah, we've had a few people who didn't think it was a possibility, and then like the most VR chat answer to doing anything, just do it. And the next thing you know,
Mhm,
wow, just doing it was the answer, and then they go on
mhm,
some massive crazy journey on learning their art or their passion or whatever it may be. Now they're
uh-huh,
huge staples, which is crazy. Yeah. So congratulations on all your
Yeah,
success, by the way. That's a very awesome
thank
thing for you to
you.
reach. What was like in that story? Have you kind of reached a point where, from the starting point where you and your friend made that scooter movie to where you had that realization, what were some of the points in between that helped you work on getting to where you are and overcoming a lot of your struggles?
That's an interesting question. So I've always had this problem with, well, it's not a problem. No, it's not a problem at all. Actually, it's something I'm very grateful for. It's a good thing, which is that I am horrifically, nightmarishly ambitious. I always start with the biggest possible version of an idea and scale it back from there. Just, I am the kind of person that will always want to jump into the sun in every possible way that I can. So there was a time when I was coming up with ideas for films to do in VRChat that were hugely ambitious, humongous, that I did not have the resources to make at the time. If I was strongly motivated enough, I could probably make those films now, but at the time I didn't have those resources. Um, what I needed to learn was to scale back and be humble and just start small and make a simple idea and make it the best that it can possibly be. Um, and in fact, I mean, this is probably the biggest thing that I have learned in my entire journey of being a filmmaker is the importance of humility. I think that humility is the most important trait a filmmaker can have because um, if you are not humble, you're not improving because you're sitting on your work saying, "This is great. I'm awesome. I'm so cool. Everybody else work sucks compared to mine." So you're not improving because you just already see yourself as the best, you know? But if you're humble and if you observe the work of your peers and the work of the masters and the work of people around you and the lives and the emotions and the beauty of people around you, then you can humble yourself to that and you can take in new ways of improving at your craft. So for me, that was a big lesson I had to learn, especially around the time that We Met in VR came out, and especially around the time that there was a few different pieces that came out around that time. I was very involved in the I've always been very involved in the VRChat club scene, but there's a few different pieces that came out around that time. One of them was Fia did a video about the VRChat club scene, and there was another video by PBS that so a few people I knew were involved in, and then there was this big video by Resident Advisor, which is a big club magazine. That one in particular, I was kind of upset that I wasn't asked to be a part of. But at that point, I was not. I was going through a lot of jealousy about having seen these other creators that were doing incredible stuff, and feeling that I wasn't. The fact that I wasn't able to do that, I had to learn humility in that moment, and I had to sit down with myself and be like, "I am not special compared to these people. I am just a really motivated person, and I'm facing conflict as I come into barriers, that exceed the limits of my motivation." So I had to sit down and just kind of make my peace with all that and study all of these works and study the work of all my peers and be like, I do have something to learn from all this. I do have much to learn from all these creators and how they've addressed these topics. And um, that was a very humbling moment for me because I realized just how much I can improve. And I think that's the most important characteristic of all is just being able to study my own work and see how I can improve. Because the way I do things is I try to always be improving and always pushing the limits of what I can do and getting better at what I can do. Because if I'm not improving, I'm stagnating. And I think that's true of all creative art forms. If you're not improving, you're stagnating. And so
Mm.
that's the ultimate goal is it shouldn't be to just like rest on your laurels, but it should be to always be improving. And so people take risks that sometimes don't work out, but like it helps you improve as an artist, you know.
Mm,
I think that's deeply important, you know. When
mm,
I was trying to be a fighting game professional player, it was fun, but it was a not and ever going to work out. But I learned that you have to lose 1,000 games for every one that you win. And if you don't play to learn, if you play to win, you're going to be terrible. If you don't play to learn and learning from every match is your goal, not winning. And if you win, you learn why you won, and if you lose, you learn why you lost. That's what I learned from being a fighting game player. And it's the same is true of creative art in any form, I think. You play to learn. That's my philosophy.
mm. That's a very, very good philosophy, and I'll have to take that one to heart. So thank you for sharing that bit. Um, so from I saw recently you posted on Twitter that you've made it into a submission for a film festival. Tell us, tell us about that.
Absolutely. Yes. So, my most recent, well, it's actually not my most recent film, but the film that I've achieved the most creative success for is Ulterior Motives, which is this very personal, kind of intimate story that I made based on my experiences in the VRChat club scene. And it is by far the most ambitious thing I've ever done. It took much longer than I thought it would to complete, and I'm still very proud of it. It's definitely the best example of my abilities as an artist right now, and it's achieved a lot of success. It was nominated for Best Short Film of VR at Raindance Immersive 2023, which is very, very cool. It's the coolest thing that's ever happened in my life. Being able to be nominated at Raindance Immersive Festival, which is an offshoot of Raindance Film Festival, one of the biggest and oldest film festivals in Europe, and probably the biggest in the UK. It's huge. It's an overwhelming. It was an overwhelming thing to have that success, and not only that, but my film was screened in real life at the Raindance Film Festival venue, and I'm told that the president of the festival was in attendance. That's not something I can confirm, but it's just very, very it's a very big thing for me to be able to put on my resume that I had a film that was nominated at Raindance. And the film's success, it is continuing, I guess, at this point, because I've just had the film be accepted as an entrant for the VRChat Movie Awards, the VRC Movie Awards, which is a Japanese event hosted by a conglomerate of different organizations over in the Japanese side of VRChat. Um, Especially, most notably, I think Hotel Kadesh, the people behind that are the ones that are kind of, started this whole thing, who are just a really great filmmaking collective and also role playing collective over there. But this is a really cool thing to be a part of. I think it's only the second one that's ever been done, which just shows, how ground floor all this is. Like, this is kind of the beginning of something that I think is going to continue to grow, this VRChat filmmaking stuff. But I'm the only English speaking film that's in the running at the VRChat Movie Awards. I'm not technically nominated for any awards yet, but there's going to be a voting process which will be completed by March 27th. And then the film will potentially be nominated for some awards at the VRChat Movie Awards, which will be a very cool thing to add to the list of successes that Ulterior Motives has seen in the past year.
Yeah.
And I'm just really excited that I get to share in the company of some artists that I really respect from overseas, because there's a lot of really amazing filmmakers over there.
Mm. So what started the creation of Ulterior Motives? Because Raptor and I sat down and watched the movie, your short film Ulterior
Mhm.
Motives, and it was amazing. How did the whole idea for the thing
I
come to
appreciate
be?
it. Could I potentially pause for a quick calibration?
Sure. I'll
My calibration tends to um drift
Oh,
over time.
understood.
It's because I don't have Vive trackers at the moment, but yes, I'm all set now.
Mine don't do that. I don't know what you're
Yeah,
talking
because
about.
You
I
don't.
don't have Vive trackers, so I have a weird one. So, but yes. Side note, I should mention that it's really funny hearing you every time you refer to Raptor over there, because I used to be Raptor. Raptor 1138. That's my old username that I still use on a lot of different things, and it's really funny to hear you. It's really funny whenever I hear people throw around Raptor like that, because I'm like, oh wait, either you're not talking to me or you know me from a really long time ago. But yeah,
Oh,
but yes. Would you mind restating the
of
question?
course. What brought Ulterior Motives to be? How did you come up with the idea, and
Yes.
what brought on the start of the short film?
So, Ulterior Motives is based on my experiences in the VRChat club scene. For those who don't know, we have a really creatively unique and interesting club scene here in VRChat, full of really interesting people making a lot of music and DJing and creating these really awesome designs for clubs. And it's a really freeing thing for people that I mean, there's a lot of reasons why people come to the VRChat club scene. I mean, some people want to go to clubs, but they can't because there's nothing in their area, or they want to hear a type of music that they can't because nobody's playing that in their area. Or, in my case, it was just a little bit difficult to kind of, make the jump of starting to go to clubs that are, I mean, there's clubs nearby. I don't think that the kinds of music that I like are generally played a lot around here, but I was deep in social anxiety. The idea of me getting in a car, driving down to Boston, going to a nightclub is not something that I've even done yet, and it's still something that I have to be like, okay. But like back then, there's no chance of that happening. So me coming into VRChat and being able to go to really awesome clubs, because I've always kind of wanted to go to dance clubs and nightclubs, and being able to do that in VRChat was very freeing, and that's an experience I share with a lot of other people in there. And so yeah, everybody has their own reasons for being in the VRChat club scene, but really, after spending a lot of time there and developing a lot of experiences and hearing a lot of people's experiences, obviously it's left an impact on me, and it's changed a lot about me as a person, and it's taken me on this journey. And so I kind of made Ulterior Motives kind of as a snapshot of myself in that moment in time, of the things I'd experienced and the journey that I'd been on, and kind of lessons I'd learned about myself from coming into VRChat and being in the VRChat club scene. I'm not going to say it's an autobiography, but there are a lot of things in that film that are definitely connected to my own experiences. And there's, just it's a very personal film. It's very much an expression of emotions that I needed to get out. And um, I think it does a pretty good job illustrating the sort of experiences of a lot of people that come into VRChat, because it kind of, I think in the movie, Chris, the protagonist, she's kind of the like archetypal VR chatter, because she is active in these social spaces, but without having a lifelong background of being socially active, which is a very common thing in VR chat. So, and I mean, it's true. It was true of me. So you have people that are not socially confident, but they're thrust into this environment where they're around people all the time, and they have reasons for being there. And people want to be socially connected to each other. That's why this place exists. People want to have, they want to form relationships. They want to engage in intimate acts. They want to get to know people on a very deep level. But it's not easy. It's not easy to cross that barrier, and it's never going to be easy to cross that barrier, whether you're in VR or in real life. But in VR, you specifically have this situation where you have a lot of people that are not good at that or not experienced in being socially active, starting to come into their own as social creatures and starting to engage in more kinds of social relationships. And that's very much the position that Chris is in that film, is that she wants to break out of this shell, this wall that she's put herself into, but she's kind of struggling against a lifelong habit of just retreating away from anything that could cause harm, that could cause pain. And so I think there's a lot of conflict in terms of not just her, but also the other characters in the film. For me, each character of the film expresses kind of a different idea about what kind of escapism that people come to VRChat looking for, why they might be here, like what their reasons for being, for seeking out that escapism are. And so you have the first half of the film, which kind of has Chris navigating a few different clubs and interacting with a few different people that all kind of have their own sort of underlying ulterior motives, reasons for why they're, chasing these vices. And it's kind of hinted at for each character what is going on deeper with them. It's like you never really get the full picture in terms of the characters just laying out for you, like, I'm depressed, or I am not over this breakup, or I have issues that I'm trying to resolve by, um, you know, throwing myself into many relationships with other people. It's like there's you don't get that specifically, but what you do get are the symptoms. And then it sort of leaves you to piece together what the cause is and what the underlying motivations behind each character are for why they're throwing themselves into these vices. And then in the second half of the film is when Chris, having seen all of this, begins to engage with her own internal flaw of why she is seeking some escapism, which in her mind, she thinks she's going to find this special connection with someone and have intimacy. But that's, in a sense, it's her running away from that deeper flaw that she has within her, and which necessarily comes out into the open because in that space, there's a, as you've seen, there's a very difficult scene in the film where she gets put into this very uncomfortable space where there's no escape, there's no hiding, because now she's in the zone, in the action, getting this intimacy that she was longing for, but it's not solving the problem because the underlying problem is so much deeper. So she's not able to accept it. She's not able to open herself up to that intimacy that she thought she wanted. And that's when her own sort of ulterior motive, I guess you would say, comes out, and she starts to actually have to stare at that trauma in the face. And that's kind of the thought process there. I mean, it has a lot to do with myself and my own things that I was going through at that time, but I also think it's something that applies to a lot of people in VRChat that are not really that haven't fully sort of unpacked the trauma that they're carrying around and why they're here in the first place. So, I don't know. I
Hmm.
think everybody has their own interpretation of it, which is very interesting to see.
Hmm.
Especially with the ending. I've had some people tell me they think it's really hopeful and uplifting ending, and I've had some people tell me that they think it's a really sad ending and it makes them cry. I don't know.
Hmm.
Everybody has their own interpretation, which is how I want it to be. know or care anything about what happens to that character after the credits roll. Like that is not part of the story. I just want to know what other people think about, how other people interpret it. Yeah, ultimately I think I make movies as an exploration of humanity because I want to know how other people are going to interpret this message that I'm sending. And so I'm always very, very intrigued by that.
Oh, what were some scenes from that from Ulterior Motives that stick with you personally or have a bigger meaning to you?
Well, the whole thing obviously, but like some really specific moments I think that I really love. Um, I think that the scene in the core, which is a really fantastic club made by my friend PK, which has incredible visual effects, and the visual effects we used in the film were very, very toned down from just how intense that place can get. It's really insane. And PK's been nominated a few times at Raindance Immersive as well. But that scene to me represents this kind of transcendent beauty of what's possible if Chris would allow herself to be free and to allow herself to be free to experience that full range of emotion and to love herself that way. But and so she gets a glimpse of that, like a taste of what's the doors of perception that could be open to her before realizing that there's this trauma that she hasn't faced. That scene means a lot to me, I think. It's really beautiful. The music is incredible. The original soundtrack by Turquoise absolutely captures what I was going for in every way, and I'm really grateful to have such incredible artists to work with, including Turquoise and others who helped me make this. And filming that scene was also just an incredible experience because I was working directly with PK on the world design to make sure everything was working for the cameras, and also I was working with a VJ named Unreal Journeys who works with PK in that club, who was managing the visual effects for us live, and we hosted an event there. It was the only of one of the events that we actually hosted. And I was in a Discord call in total control of the visual effects as I was directing my actors, because I would just say I made a Bible of which effects I wanted to use, and I would say to Unreal Journeys which one I wanted. That was a really incredible filming experience. That was my favorite filming experience of the short, but also I think it's the most beautiful scene in terms of just what I was able to capture there. But I'm also really um I'm really in love with the final scene. I think my directing kind of really shone through at its finest there in the final scene. And in the sort of interactions, just the subtleties of the performances of the actors and how it all came together, as well as just how evocative that music by Turquoise is. See, when it comes down to it, the way I see directing, and this is not the same for other people, but for me, directing is about finding the best people for the job and then just guiding the vision. So I don't want to know how to do everything on the movie set. Some people do. Like, some people want to know how to do everything on the movie set better than the people that are doing it, but I don't want to. I want other people who are better than me at those things to be involved with the project, to deliver their incredible work to my project so that I can focus on telling the story and guiding their vision in order to capture what I'm going for. That to me is the job of a director. I think it's a very collaborative art form. And those moments when I was really able to connect with the actors and the artists that I was working with and bring out those that collaborative energy are the ones that I'm most proud of, because those are when I see that it's working, that I'm actually doing what I set out to do as a director. I'm actually able to convey my vision effectively to a cast and crew who are then able to convey that vision effectively to an audience. Those are the moments that are most powerful to me because that's when it's like it's working. I can do this. I'm actually directing a movie. You know.
Mm. So, with those scenes specifically, what were some tricks and or skills or methods you used to portray the message you were hoping to push in those scenes?
Um, for me, I think that the most important thing in a movie is the acting performances. And if you don't have believable acting performances, you don't have a movie. You have some people reading lines in front of a camera. That's my opinion. So my entire goal, my primary goal going into Ulterior Motives was to be able to bring out good acting performances and strong, believable acting from my actors. And there's a few methods that I had for doing that. I went into the project knowing with absolute certainty that I was going to have access to basically no professional actors. Basically, people with very little actual acting experience. So what I did was I chose to work with friends of mine, people that are personalities that I know. So like if I know the personality of my friend, what they're like, then I can see how they would fit into the role. And I could even write the role for them or write it around them once it's already been written. And that enables me to cast people so that they're not really acting. They're just kind of being themselves, which already gets them like 80% of the way to inhabiting a character. Then at that point, what I do is I give as much I give a lot of control and ownership over the character to the actor, and I say that I wrote this, but this is yours to inhabit. So I want you to take these lines and I want you to say them the way that you would say them or the way that you think the character would say them. I want this to be a collaborative energy between you, me, and the other cast members. I want to build it around the actual humanity of the people involved because I don't think I'm a very good writer. I think I can write ideas, but I don't think I can necessarily always write believable acting or believable characters. But what I can do is I can give that job to people to actually be believable characters by just being themselves. And that gets you a lot further the way towards believability, I think. Like I'll
Mm.
never write like a Tarantino script or a Coen Brothers script because those are people that write the script and the script is amazing and then they do everything exactly according to the script because that's the Bible because they're a great writer and they can do that.
Mm.
I don't think that's my way. I think my way is to get incredibly talented performers who fit the characters and then let the magic happen on set. The way I see it is you want to be as prepared as you possibly can. You want to have shot lists, you want to have a script, you want to have storyboards if necessary. You want to have an absolute bible of things that you can fall back on if need be. But once you're there on the set, the magic is going to come from spontaneity. There has to be an element of spontaneity brought into it to sort of allow for the unpredictable to come in and change the film. That adds realism, it adds humanity, and as long as the intentions are clear, as long as you're staying focused on the core of what the scene is trying to say and keeping everything in line with authenticity and believability and humanity, then it'll work because you have this guiding focus. That's my job as the director, is to give that guiding focus and make sure that everything that's being said lines up with the emotional content of the scene. But aside from that, I love spontaneity. I want spontaneity to come into the scene, and that's very important to me.
So, for all of that, and with your experience with directing and making short films, what are some of the benefits to doing a film in VR versus doing it in real life? Hello, I'm going to quickly interrupt your video. Please come follow us on any of our socials. We have a card down that way in the description, Metaversedegen card.co. You can find us on Discord. You can find us on Twitter, which X, whatever. Right here in this space, you'll see the @ you can find me, Lion. And as well, we have a Patreon, which we've started a whole other show as a thank you for those who've signed up, such as Training Fangs, Forbidden Zero, and Niche. So thank you all for watching the video on how these games are going. I'll leave you to the rest of it. Enjoy.
Huge benefits. And that's because if I wanted to make a space movie right now, like 2 astronauts on a space station that lands on the moon, I could find a moon world, I could find a space station world, I could grab 2 friends, I could shoot that tonight. If I wanted to do that in live action, I would need a huge budget. I'd need like months to build the sets. I would need like the resources that it takes to make a film of any concept are much decreased here in VRChat than it is in the real world. That doesn't mean it's easier. It is not easier. It's more accessible because the resources are more available. So it's kind of like in VRChat, you have all of the tools available in front of you right now. If you're in the real world, maybe you don't have a very good camera. Maybe you don't have the money to build sets or the actors to work with or people to help you out. But you have all that here in VRChat, especially if you actively get connected with other artists in VRChat, of which there are many in just about every community. But generally, most people in VRChat are pretty well connected with their friends and with other people that are interested in what they do. So, like, you have all the tools in front of you. What happens is it's now up to you as a creator, entirely up to you as a creator to make films. And how good those films are, how well produced they are, will depend solely on your motivation, your talent, your ability to work with people, because you're not limited by resources. You could make any movie that you want to make. You are merely limited by your vision to be able to do that. Obviously that's scalable. If you have money, you can do more things in VRChat filmmaking than if you don't have money. But that doesn't mean you have to. You can make things on a low budget with an incredible amount of resources. But there's other obstacles. For example, if I want to make a scene where a character walks across this platform, that would be a limiting obstacle because a lot of people don't have play spaces big enough to walk that far. And there's some people that are capable of infinite walking, and there's some people that are not. That's one example. Another example is like if you want a character to physically interact with objects in the world or with another character, that's a difficult thing you have to plan out because in VRChat we can't physically interact with one another. We can pretend to, but there's not going to be that feeling of push and response that you would get if I pushed you in real life, So there are limitations, but those limitations give a cause to provide creative solutions. If you have a limitation on a VRChat movie set, you can figure out a way, sometimes there in the moment on set, figure out a way to overcome that limitation, overcome that obstacle. And that's something that every VRChat filmmaker has to do in the moment on their sets all the time. Just think of, okay, this world, we can't turn off the chairs or something like that. Or this world, that has no gravity on the objects. So when we place the bottle down, it needs to look right and stuff like that. And you have to figure that out. They are on the set, you know? But that would be true of real life too. Really, if you're on a real life set and you're shooting and you don't have time to fix the set, or you don't have time to get a different prop, or you don't have time to do whatever, fix the makeup or whatever, you're gonna have to come up with those same kind of creative solutions on a set like that. It's the same skill. It's just that in VRChat, the solutions, the problems are different and the solutions are different because you're dealing with a lot of technical limitations in terms of using the hardware and software that we use, as opposed to just production design stuff. So I think it is not necessarily easier or harder, but what it is you have limitless access to resources to make whatever idea you want to make. And what it comes down to is if you as a creator are able to do that. If you are able to summon the passion and energy within yourself, and if you're good at interacting with people, because you have to be good at interacting with people. This is an art form entirely about interacting with people. The most important technology on a film set is people. And if you can't interact with people, that's going to make it really difficult for you to make a movie approaching the scale of even my first film or something like that. A lot of people make movies by themselves in VRChat, which is another thing that you can do that's much easier in VRChat than anywhere else because you can pin up a camera and you can do whatever you want. But I think that in order to make a film more scalable, much bigger scale, you need to be working with people. You need to be able to do that. So those are the things that are really being tested as a creator. It's not how much money you have or how much resources you have or if you can pitch to a studio. It's actually how good are you at filmmaking and directing a crew and cast, which I think is a really great challenge.
Oh, so when you were in the learning process of doing filmmaking in VR, what were some key highlights that you've learned that surprised you can do here in VR?
That is an interesting question. What surprised me that I can do? Well, I will say I'm really impressed with the work of my friend Kongal Luu as a filmmaker. He was formerly with Metacosm Studios, and now he has his own independent studio called Studiopenrose. And his film Emergence won the Raindance Immersive Best Short Film of VR Award 2023. His previous film before that, Penrose Protocol with Metacosm Studios, is a really incredible technical showcase of different things that you can do in VR, specifically things that you can do in VR that are challenging to do without a lot of money. Knows not how much money you have. Long one take sequence where a character gets out of a car, walks down 2 alleyways following another character, and then goes to a train station. And they film that entire thing in one shot. And I was there. I actually attended that shooting. You can see me in the background of that shot. And it was 2 4-hour shooting sessions, 8 hours total to try to get that one shot. And that doesn't count all the preparation that was done, all the planning, and seeing that teamwork and deliver that kind of amazing feat of filmmaking that I wouldn't have comprehended that I could do without, seeing them do that. That was really, really cool to be part of. That really inspired me. It's especially inspiring the future films that I want to make, where I think in the future, coming soon, shortly, I want to make films which are much more technically complex and pushing the limits of what can be done. And that moment really inspired me. And another thing that I think is really surprising about making films in VRChat is how connected you are to so many people from so many different areas of industries and stuff like that, and connections that surprised me, you know? Like, I never expected when I made this little film that I would be able to have that film be shown at a film festival by a huge YouTuber, or that I would eventually make another film that would be shown at Raindance. My second short film in VR was shown at Raindance Film Festival. Like, these kinds of things are incredibly surprising to me, but the fact is that these people are out there. They are artistically motivated. They are here in VRChat. They wanna see what you're doing, you know? They wanna see cool stuff. They wanna share that cool stuff. They wanna show it to the world. And I really do believe that if you are in VRChat making cool stuff, the good stuff will rise to the top, and it will be seen, and it will draw attention of people that surprise you, because that's the really unique thing about VRChat, is just how interconnected you are with so many people in so many creative fields that are really motivated by what they're doing. And that's not something I think exists, like, anywhere else, genuinely.
Hmm. Oh. So from a from example, the studio Penrose short or Metacosm Studios Penrose Protocol scene you mentioned, what were some things
Mhm.
from your experiences either in that scene or other conversations you've had of things you've learned of filmmaking you brought into your own work?
That is, a good point. Good question. Well, I think I've learned a lot from my friends who are involved with Metacosm and Penrose, um, in terms of their process of how they do things, like how they work with body actors and voice actors and stuff, and how they find talent for their films. And I definitely think you can probably see a huge difference of my first film versus my second film. When after my Before my first film, I'd never spoken to anybody from Metacosm. After that film, you can see a lot of the core staff at Metacosm and Penrose were involved with that film, including some of their biggest actors. I had technical work done on the camera system by Peach Bite, who's involved there. But I also want to say that I learned a lot about filmmaking in VR from Joe Hunting. Right after I first watched We Met in Virtual Reality, which is his documentary, I immediately had so many questions. I was so blown away by his vision as an artist, and I had so many questions, and I wanted to reach out to him to just sit down with him and interview him and ask these questions that were burning inside me. And so I reached out with him with an email. I reached out by email, and I didn't hear back from him for like 6 months. But then it was Raindance 2022, where it was one day when everything changed. When I he did he did a Q&A for We Met in VR at Raindance 2022, and the whole cast of the film was there, and I attended that. I hadn't heard back from him by email at this point, but when I approached him after the Q&A, instantly he was just like, "Oh, Ariel, I got your email. Let's talk." And I was just that there, like instant, like now we know each other. And he's seen my film already at this point, and he told me he loved my film. And that same day, also at that same event, I met the Metacosm staff for the first time. I never met or spoken to any of them before, but that same day at that event, I met them. And then that night they were filming a scene, which was a technically complex scene with a lot of actors. Um, and a friend of mine was involved with that scene, and I asked her like, "So can you like get me into that?" And She was like, I don't know if I can. But then like a couple hours later, she's like, you're in, join on me. So I ended up sneaking my way into this shoot, this Metacosm shoot, this same day that I had met Joe Hunting at this Q&A. But once I was there, then Kongal Luu, who was directing, just asked if I wanted to be in it. And so I ended up being in it as a background extra, and I got to see an actual VR movie set for this time. And that was such a huge day. That was like I was in VR for like 15 hours straight, but that's besides the point. Like that was the day that my horizons opened wider than they've ever opened before, because in that same day I met Joe Hunting. And I ended up sitting down with him for an interview in which we talked a lot about a lot of philosophy behind directing and the ethics and responsibility of a director when approaching their actors and trying to come at these things with a very non-judgmental perspective and to look for humanity and see truth through the camera. But that was also the same day that I met the Metacosm team and got to see them at work on a actual film set in VR for the first time, where they were doing some seriously technical stuff. And that was that moment when I was on the set. That was like a 4-hour shoot of just a lot of just standing around waiting. And at that whole time I was standing around waiting, exhausted, my knees hurt. I was just thinking, this is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life, and I couldn't be happier. I could not possibly be happier than doing this right now, because this is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. What an incredible moment that was.
Wow. Were there any key takeaways from either of those experiences in the same day, which sounds like something out of a movie in and of itself, by the way?
Yeah, exactly.
Which are there any moments from either of those moments you've mentioned that stuck with you or helped you grow as a filmmaker or even as a person?
When it comes down to it, I think the most challenging and most important aspect of filmmaking, or specifically of being a director, which is my passion, is how you work with other people and how you work with actors. I mean, I've already mentioned it, but like the intricacies of that relationship of being a decision maker and having people rely on you as a decision maker, and then having to take that responsibility into your hands and make good decisions. And people are trusting you. They're trusting you with their time, they're trusting you with their energy, they're trusting you with their craft, and they put their faith in you that you'll be able to make a good film, but also that you'll be able to represent them well, and that you'll be able to guide them without being like abusive. You've heard stories, I'm sure, of abusive directors like Stanley Kubrick in some of his films, James Cameron, a director that I look up to a lot. His book of interviews is currently sitting on my desk, but he's had moments in his career when he's been known for being very intense and very aggressive and putting people through fire and flames to get a scene done. You know, that kind of relationship between a director and the people that are trusting the director to get the scene done, to get the film done well, is such a delicate and important thing. It's what the whole movie rests on, if you ask me. And learning the intricacies of that relationship is something that I was starting to pick up watching Kongal Luu direct on that movie set that day. I definitely started to sort of see how Kong works with his actors, and how he keeps the atmosphere light and fun and energetic on his set in order to keep people interested and motivated despite all the standing around. And I also learned a lot about that process and that relationship from not necessarily the meeting on that day with Joe Hunting, but with the interview that we shared, where I asked him a lot of questions that I had about his experiences directing actors. And his experience was with documentary, which is different from what I do. I mostly focus on narrative film. I have done documentary, but I mostly focus on narrative film. But it's a lot of the same lessons. You have people that are trusting you to represent them well. You have people that you're relying on to deliver their talent to make a film, and you need to find a relationship that will bring out the truest and most authentic, art from that relationship, and you need to be able to have a good working relationship with those people. It's so, so important. It's the most crucial thing. And so then those experiences definitely informed a lot about how I learned more about how to do that better, And I really look up to my friends that have helped me get to where I am. And I'm in all about no competition. When I made the VRChat filmmakers Discord, I put the rules in. The first rule I put in was this is a competition-free environment, because I'm very much about learning from each other, helping each other, being humble and being supportive of each other as artists. So crucial to me. So crucial to me that everybody gets to feel that they have their autonomy in this space and on my sets as well. I think that's the most important thing.
Hmm. Okay. Wow. That's a lot to take in, I'm gonna be honest, and I'm glad VRChat was able to help you learn those lessons. Was VRChat the place in which you've learned most about your craft? Or did you take a lot of information, as you mentioned in the beginning, prior to VRChat into here?
That's a good question. And I actually would say I think there's a lot that can only be learned through experience, but I do think I still feel right now that the majority of what I know about filmmaking comes from my experiences before VRChat. I feel this sense that I've been building up a lot of my understanding about film and how films are made and the technical processes that go into it. And now I'm have my chance to actually put those to the test. And I've learned a lot through the experience of actually making videos. I made club videos and stuff like that for like several months before I made my first short film. But I've I'm continuing to I'm going to continue to learn more and more with every film I do. And when I make a short film that I'm really confident about, I try to like jump to a huge sort of level above where I'm at. I'm like, okay, so my first film was this 6-minute little film with one scene at one location. My next film, it also only had 2 actors, right? So my next film is gonna have eight scenes in 8 different locations. It's gonna be filmed on location at live music events, and it's gonna have like 10 actors. It's a huge jump, but it's still something that I feel that I'm confidently able to do, and it feels like it enables me to learn a huge amount from taking on an experience like that, because I know how to make a movie. I know that I know how to make a movie. The question is, do I know that I have the resolve to actually grind out a movie? And that's what scares me. That's what continues to scare me. And I don't want to take on a project if it doesn't scare me. I want to take on projects that make me feel like I'm shooting for the fucking moon. I want a huge challenge to placed before me every time I start a project, because because I will do it. I will find a way and I will do it. And then I will know how to do it. And I will not be scared of that challenge anymore. And I'll be a better filmmaker. That's my core philosophy behind choosing the projects that I do, because I want to choose projects that are going to be like 6 flights of stairs up, opposed to like the next 2 steps. And that's not necessarily what's recommended to people who are in my position. A lot of filmmakers say you should be iterating. You should be making small films that iterate on your capabilities. But I'm I've always been about big jumps. I've always been about taking on an ambitious project that I don't think I even am able to do, and then proving to myself that I'm able to do it. That's my process.
Mm. It's quite impressive for a VR filmmaker of sorts, especially one that is in your particular steps to shoot for the moon and then in that sense. And I, for some reason, I remember somewhere in my life, I remember hearing experience is the best teacher.
I would agree with that. Um, you can learn a lot of theory, and I have learned a lot of theory, but definitely you're not going to know really how to make a movie until you're on set making a movie. And so it's important to get that experience, especially because when I was making club videos, that's me filming and then editing. When I'm making a movie, then there's like actors all over the place, and there's crew, and there's a lot of Discord messages that need to be sent. And it's a lot of planning and scheduling and stuff. And yeah, that's the thing that I learned working on Ulterior Motives, is just how much of a hassle scheduling can be, especially working with live music events. So like, yeah, when you're on set actually doing it with other people, I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but it's what it always comes back to, is that you're not just making movies, you're making it in the face of other people. Like, if you're gonna look like a fool, you're gonna look like a fool in front of a lot of people that trust you. So the way to actually deal with that is to accept that you're going to look like a fool and move on, you know? Like, if I make a mistake on set, I just like, I made a mistake, we need to fix it. That's that kind of maturity, to be able to just not be walking around feeling like Mr. Superman, but to be able to like accept that you're flawed and you're going to make mistakes, and being able to work out how to solve those mistakes with the people around you, the people on set. That's the biggest teacher.
Mm.
Specifically within the idea of experience as the best teacher, that's the biggest teacher, is fucking up
Mm.
in front of other people. The
Mm.
bigger the fuck up, the bigger the lesson you learn.
Mm. You know, have you ever went on YouTube or Spotify and you listen to those self-help kind of talks or TED Talks, and there's some dude who's multi-billionaires, and usually almost all of them tell you the same thing, but it is very akin to what you say. The road to success is
Mhm.
ripe with failure. And that's a very good.
Specifically failure in front of other people, I would
Mm.
say. You need to fuck up, and you need to feel ashamed about having fucked up in order to really, really learn from that. But that's the thing, is eventually you don't have to you don't feel ashamed anymore. You're just like, I fucked up. We need to fix it.
Mm.
I didn't get this shot. We need to go back and we need to get this shot. Something like that. Or this didn't look right. We need to refilm it. We need to redo it. We have to plan this again. Or like, the planning wasn't good enough for this, so people didn't show up at the right time. That's probably my fault. So we have to do it again. You have to deal with other people's fuck ups too.
Mm.
Like, it's not just me. Like, when I was on Ulterior Motives, we had issues where people weren't always showing up on time.
Mm.
It happens. You have to deal with that too.
Mm.
That requires another level of maturity, because you need to be not mad at people. You need to be just like, okay, this was a mistake that was made. We need to account for it. We need to fix it so that we can complete the project, so that we complete the shooting. You didn't show up to work on time. Now you're here. Okay, well, how much time do we have? What can we get done with the time that we have left? And then when can we come back to do the rest of the scenes that we weren't able to do? Please try to be there on time next time. So
Mm.
you like, that's the kind of maturity that you definitely learn through your failure and through other people's failures, is that it's not about blaming anybody. It's not about like getting mad or making a big scene. It's not about burning bridges. You need to just identify why the problem was caused and fix it and move on so that you can complete the project. That's the most important thing. That's definitely the core part of that lesson, I think, is having the maturity to be able to just say, okay, this was a mistake that I made or that you made. Let's see how we fix it.
Mm. So now I'm gonna steer into a different question as well. Are there any current projects in
Mhm.
which you're working on, and what made you want to choose them as your current project?
Mhm. That's a Absolutely, yes. I'm not gonna say too much about what I'm working on because I don't generally like to discuss projects until they're reaching a stage of completion. However, I will say that I'm working on a potential project, a couple potential projects actually, for the upcoming Raindance Immersive Festival, the dates of which have been significantly moved up from last year, and it's gonna be in July now. So it's not as much time to work with. So I won't be making a film quite on the scale of Ulterior Motives, but I have one or two projects that I'm looking at, and I have a couple other films planned for when I'm done with those. And the key thing about those projects and about the project I'm taking right now is I want to take projects based on if I am going to be collaborating with somebody that I want to work with. And somebody I want to work with, it might be because they have a big following. It might be because they can bring a lot creatively to the project. They're a very talented artist. But really, above all, I want to work with somebody if I feel that I can work with them as a person. If I like them as a person, and I feel that we're actually going to connect and have a positive working relationship together. That's what I'm all about. You know, those are the kinds of things that really make me want to work on a project with someone. So, for example, if there's a creator that has a big following, it's an exciting opportunity to work with them. But if I find that they're difficult to work with as a person and I'm like not getting along with them, I'm not going to want to work with them regardless of, their following, because it's just not comfortable for me to be in that position. So I want to work with people that I actually like and respect and want to work with. And that's something that really motivates me as an artist actually, is collaboration with artists that I respect. And that's what's motivating me on these current projects that I'm working on right now, which I have about 4 collaborative projects currently in the works like that. And then in the future, I'm looking at also, I'm starting to plan ideas out for my next personal creative short films that are gonna be my own projects.
Mm.
And I have very big plans of taking things to the next level and being very ambitious and, shooting for the next moon. So there's always a bigger obstacle to clear. There's always a bigger wall that you can put up to climb over, and that's what I'm going to be doing.
Mm. So I'll give you one final closing question before we make this a wrap. Why do you continue making short films in VR?
Well, short films for now, but
Well, filmmaking in VR.
the
Sorry.
future is limitless. Who knows? I mean, eventually I want to make feature films, and eventually I want to make films that are made in real life and not just in VR. And why do I keep doing it? Because it's the only thing I've ever wanted to do in my life. It's my passion, it's my reason for existing. It's the thing that drives me. It's the thing that pumps oxygen into my blood, is making movies and my passion for movies. And it's it gives me purpose. It gives me something to strive for. It gives me a goal to reach. It's this vision that I have of what I can be and what I can accomplish and what I can do. And the sky's the limit of how far I can go with it. I'm here in VR now making short films, but like I've already had a short film made in VR shown at a real life film festival, and that's just the beginning. Like I could make a feature film here and that could be shown at a festival. And, there's always the question of getting distribution. I know it's possible because Joe did it. His film was purchased by HBO for streaming on Max, and it's just a matter of time until that becomes a more attainable goal for something that I can look at as something that's realistically possible of making a film on a large enough scale to achieve some kind of distribution. And from there, I mean, the sky's the limit. Like I'm just the only thing I know for certain is that I'm not going to know for certain anything of what will happen. That's something I learned. Is the only thing I know for sure is that I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen, except that I will absolutely always guarantee that I will be making movies and I will continue to make movies until I die. I will continue to make movies until I achieve a creative success or no creative success. It's just the thing that drives me in this life, and that's what I'm going to do.
Hmm. Well, thank you very, very much for sharing everything with us and letting us get insight into your world. We appreciate it, and thank you for your time.
I appreciate it so
Yeah, no
much.
doubt.
Where can people find you if they wish to find you?
Absolutely. I'm very open to communication. You can, find me in VRChat, Ariel Emerald, or you can find me on Discord. Same thing with an underscore. My Twitter is at Ariel underscore Emerald VR, I believe. And my Twitter is where I post updates about my projects. My YouTube channel, Ariel Emerald. I mean, it's the same everywhere. I keep my identity pretty unified so that I'm pretty easily able to find wherever you go. And yeah, I'm very active open for chatting. Anybody that wants to hit me up, I will generally respond to. So yeah.
Okay. Well, Raptor, you know the thing.
The
Sure
thing.
do. Like I say, folks, and when you're in VR, you have a dream, even if it's a tiny one or a big one. It just takes one thing, and that's the power to push. So if you got the power to push, don't push too hard. You might leave a puddle. And God, I hope you don't leave a puddle. So you guys take care. We'll talk to you later. Bye.